I'm going to go over the macro timelines, and then the second part is going to be just the narrative that's driving this price increase. So this is a breakdown of the cycles of the last four cycles, including the Bitcoin halving date, the bull market peak after the halving date, and the time from the halving to the peak. So here we see the halving was in November 2012, the peak was 2013 or November 2013. Bitcoin was 1,150, and that time to peak took 12 months. The following cycle, the halving date was July 26, 2016. The bull market peak was December 2017. The peak price was roughly 20,000, and it took 17 months to get there. Then you fall off into another bear market, followed by the next cycle, which took 18 months to get to peak. And that takes us here. And what's interesting is we add up the time from the Bitcoin halving date to the previous market peak for the last three cycles: 12 months, 17 months, 18 months divided by three. That puts us roughly an average of 15.5 months from the halving date to the bull market peak. So 15.5 months from the last halving was April 2024. The current bull market peak isn't determined yet because it's roughly 15.5 months away. We're only 12 months away. So that would put a rough estimation for the next peak between what's April 12th, May, June, July, August. We'll say August, September. And that goes to what I've been predicting, roughly expecting the peak for Bitcoin to come in around summer, fall of 2025. And we're right on that timeline. Let's look at that real quick. So we see here on Coin Market Cap, we're sitting in a deep fear state. And what's interesting is I try to preach this all the time. It really does follow the emotion. A few days ago, it was the fear and greed index was 17. That's when the US president was essentially joking around with tariffs, pausing them, implementing them, raising them. Who cares? Who knows? But now you see we're slowly climbing out of that. And what's interesting is previously, last time we were over here in extreme greed, people were like, man, are you selling? You really? That was in December. That was in December. And if we look at the price of Bitcoin in December, let's go put 1 year. That was here. That was when Bitcoin was 100K. It just broke 100K after blasting up through 60,000, 70,000, 80, 90. It climbed to 100K, and people were riding that euphoria wave. And then it started to retrace. And it took roughly from that extreme greed another extent. It would extend to January, and then it would come back all the way down. And so from December 2024 to now, it's 4 months, 4 or 5 months. And what's interesting is it took 4 or 5 months to take us from extreme greed to extreme fear. Now we're climbing back out. And 4 or 5 months from now is roughly how much longer it is to the next peak. So if you're thinking long-term investments, which you should be, rather than jumping on hype, like I would be loading up thinking about the long term. I mean, we know we're supposed to buy fear and sell greed. And so when you do buy, you have to think of dollar cost averaging with the time frame of at least 4 or 5 months. But now if you have any time in the space, you do realize once the Bitcoin peak hits, it takes 3 to 4 months after that peak before people realize we're now descending into a bear market because everyone's riding the euphoria. So in actuality, with this time frame, what we're looking at for Bitcoin, at least, if we go to click the all time, this goes back to 2011. We're here. We're probably looking at 6 to 8 months of very heavy appreciation for digital assets in general. We are 8 months. That really takes us to the end of the year since it's April. 8 months from April, I would expect pretty frenzied, frantic adoption, use buzzwords and headlines to appear for the next 8 months, just based off of nothing other than the timelines we know Bitcoin to operate in dating back to 2012, which is over a decade of data. Um, I know that doesn't take into account the recession fears, but just hold that thought. Let's go to the fact that what is this? Yeah, this is Reuters. March 3rd, 2025. Trump names Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano for strategic reserve. U.S. President Donald Trump on social media announced the names of 5 digital assets he expects to include in a new U.S. strategic reserve. Trump said in a post on Truth Social, um, his January executive order on digital assets would create a stockpile of currencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano. Interestingly, he says, and obviously, BTC and ETH, as other valuable cryptocurrencies, will be the heart of the reserve, meaning they're probably going to hold more of those because, according to the White House, they do, in fact, see it as digital gold, stated here in their fact sheet. This came out March 6th, a little over a month ago, creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile. The order creates a strategic Bitcoin reserve that will treat Bitcoin as a reserve asset. It also established a U.S. digital asset stockpile consisting of digital assets and other assets other than Bitcoin owned by the Department of Treasury. What else is interesting in here? Oh, this is one thing that stood out to me. We know the sentiment of the US president. We know how bold, whether you hate it or love it, he is as a leader. This declaration is very ambitious, and he doesn't seem to ever like to back down from his statements. And he says, or according to the White House here, delivering on the pledge to make America the crypto capital of the world. President Trump is fulfilling his promise to position America as the global leader in cryptocurrency. President Trump promised to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, President Trump appointed a crypto czar, and I'm really getting annoyed with their usage of that word, but whatever. They have to use language to appeal to their group, and is hosting the first ever crypto summit. Who is this crypto czar? I did some research on him. David O. Sachs. This gentleman was CEO of Yammer in 2016, and his angel investments include Facebook, Uber, SpaceX, Palantir Technologies, and Airbnb. I'm guessing he's doing rather well. He was also a co-host of an All In podcast with Chamath, who is well known from previous cycles as being very pro Solana, and what'd you call it? Oh yeah, he was a senior executive at Facebook in their heyday from 2007 to 2011. I checked out his Twitter page just off random, just to see what he was doing, what he was into. And yeah, he's still very pro crypto. December 1st, 2024, so not long ago, he stated Ethereum, despite being the second largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, faces challenges to its growth. He then goes on to speak to how the layer 2 solutions, while well intended, aren't easily adopted, they're not easily usable, and he argues that it takes away from the appeal of Ethereum. And then he goes on, interestingly enough, to continue to promote Solana. This situation has created an opportunity for Solana, a competing cryptocurrency that processes transactions quickly and inexpensively. Solana's native token has demonstrated stronger performance, rising 300% over the past year compared to Ethereum's 75%. So now, as a result, Solana has established itself as the second largest platform for decentralized financed applications. This is important when we look at the broader market and crypto adoption in general. This is important because the um, the assumption is Ethereum's been around longer, so it has dominance, but quite frankly, not a lot of people enjoy using it because when the bull markets do return, the fees for transactions are $50, $100. I remember seeing some crazy NFT auctions in the last cycle when they were occurring during high like peak impact times where people were shelling out $500, $1,000 just to push the transaction through. What Chamath, I believe, is saying is that Solana is far friendlier. Um, it was kind of a trend to hate on Solana, but as far as adoption is concerned and ease of use, I think they have the just better ecosystem. Unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately, it's just an objective or what I believe to be an objective truth as far as usability is concerned. So if we look at the price of it, well, first let's look at this is the last part before I close up. The cycle previous cycle peak was November 2021. Bitcoin was 70,000. Let's look at the prices of these assets during the last cycle peak. This is Solana. November 2021. Yep, that was the peak for Solana as well. Let's look at Ethereum. Go to all. Last cycle peak was November 2021. Let's look at a boring one no one likes to buy, but is actually going to probably provide good returns. I'm a low-key crypto.com stan because they've only produced the best iOS app for usability that I've come across. And again, November 2021 was the peak, and crypto.com or Crow is trading basically along the floor of the price. No one can predict what the outcome will be, but I think this is one of those things where people say the moment to sell is either one, when the Coinbase app becomes the number one downloaded app on iOS, or when you start screenshotting your portfolio. That's when you're supposed to sell. And I think by the time Coinbase is the number one iOS app on users' iPhones, crypto.com is going to see a rise in price strictly off of people clamoring in to buy and be a part and of, crypto purchasing and appreciation. And they have one of the cleanest onboarding experiences and usability that I've seen. So I'm probably going to be accumulating. And if they go to all-time highs, the previous one was roughly 90 cents. It's sitting at 9 cents now. And if they break an all-time high, there is your 10x opportunity if you like old, boring, slow holdings. My degen days are behind me, so that's relevant to my interest. But yeah, that is the broader market as a whole right now. We're climbing out of fear. There's still fear mongering, but it is just clear to me that, at least on the United States front, they're doing everything they can to front run this and get in the digital asset and cryptocurrency space as quickly as possible. And you should too.